Hey there folks, Jeremy Deal coming at you with gear review number 2. This time we're talking about the Edelkrone Wing Slider. We're going to talk about how cool and compact it is, how unique it is compared to other sliders, how efficiently it gets the job done, so therefore you use it more on the job site, which is more important. You don't want to spend money on gear that you're not actually going to use. So, all that being said, let's get into it. Hi there folks, I'm Jeremy Deal. For those of you new to the channel, I do photography, videography, cinematography, and so much more. I create media content specifically for real estate agents and brokers out there trying to sell properties in this marketplace. Now what we're all here for. Let's talk about the Edelkrone Wing Slider and what makes it so unique. First of all, we're going to talk about its size. Look how compact this thing is. If you've ever used a slider before, then you know most of them all look the exact same. One or two rails of a system, very long, very cumbersome. The one I had was the Canovo K5, and this is what it looked like. It was huge. It was like 3.5 foot long, 4 foot long. I could never leave it attached to my tripod. I always had to take it off. It has its own carrying case. It did have a motorized slide unit, which was really cool, but it had to be set up separately, and it always made little jerks in the footage, no matter what I did. And it was very difficult for me to get that kind of jerkiness out, so I never used it. I only used it in manual mode, and it had its own complications. So long story short, I was looking for a new slider. And everywhere I was looking, probably because I had just purchased another one of their products, I was seeing this thing, this Edelkrone Wing Slider. Like, what is this thing about? It's so unique in the slider world. Well, I'll tell you what it's about. It's about game changing. It's so much better than a traditional slider, and let's go into why right now. First of all, like we just talked about, the size. As you can tell, this is a Google Pixel 3a. This is my phone. It is about the same size as it. I can cover it up. You see that? Isn't that crazy? Now, granted, obviously the thickness is a little bit different. It's much thicker than the phone, but the size itself is that of a phone. As I just mentioned before, all other sliders are huge. This thing is tiny. What does that mean? It means you can bring it everywhere. What does that actually mean? It means you're actually going to use it. Other sliders are a pain to set up. They're a pain to bring everywhere. This thing fits in every one of my camera bags, so I always have it with me. That is checkpoint number 1, because if you don't have it with you, you obviously can't use it. Now, roll on to checkpoint number 2. It's build quality. It is super solid. It's metal. It isn't plastic. It isn't garbage. It is hardcore. Now, I will say one thing. When I first bought it, I did have a problem with the very first one that I got. Now, the way this thing operates is, as you can tell, this is the bottom part that mounts onto the tripod, and your camera goes here. I'll turn it this way so you get a better view of the slide action. So your camera goes here, this attaches to the tripod, and this entire mechanism just slides like this. Boom, slides from side to side. So the problem I was having with my first one, should I say, is that this mechanism right here, something inside of it was loose. So as it got to the extremities of one side or the other, the whole piece of footage would bow over a little bit. Now, you'll see a little piece of that footage. I'll put it right here for you just so you can check out what it looks like. But what I will like to say is that I contacted the company about it. Less than a day, they had me figured out, set up, and ready to ship back. Had it in the mail the following day. I was gone for a week, maybe 8 days, and it was back to my house. Not like, I don't know about you, but that's unheard of. Super quick response, and especially considering it had a repair. And after I had that one issue with it, I've never had another issue with it. As you can see, it's dinged up, it's messed up. I use it a lot. I've shot probably 20 houses with this thing now, and let me tell you about it. It is a workhorse. It always gets the job done. There's a lot of reasons why this thing is better than a traditional slider, and the second reason I like it better is because of its motion. It has this really unique thing. So let me unslap it. Boom. So see this right here? This is actually a little tension rod. So what does that do? Like, we'll loosen it all the way up. See how fast I can make it move? Like, look, it goes with no friction at all. Now, if I tighten this up a little bit, as you can tell, now there's friction, so it moves slower. And it creates a nice, slow, even pan. Now, why does that matter? So if you've ever had a traditional style slider, like my old Konovo K5 I was talking about earlier, there's no tension built into it. It slides smooth, but there's nothing applying tension either one way or the other. So what does that mean? It means that you kind of have to treat it like you would as though you were about to take a shot. You have to take in that deep breath, let out half of it, and hold your breath. You hold on to the piece of gear, and I slide it back and forth as slow as I can. 6, 7, 8 times, as many as I can, just to make sure that I've got the right shot. Because I don't want to get back, start editing footage, and realize that it's jerky or something like that. Now, this thing is really nice. So instead, I know it's 100% reliable. So instead of having to do all that back and forth to make sure I get the right shot, it's one and done. I unclip it, I go forward, and then I go back. Then I go to the next room. It's already in back, I start back, I go forward, I go back. It's rinse and repeat. What's nice about that is it gives you the same footage for every single room. And as long as you don't mess with this tension bar down here, it's gonna give you the same speed across every room, which is super, super important. When I had the old slider version, it was very difficult to match my own pace time and time again. It's a very difficult thing to do. But with this, you don't have to match your own pace. This tension bar built in allows it to match the pace for you. Now, there is one drawback to this system, and that is the fact that if you use this, it's on your tripod, and you start pushing and you've got tension built in, your tripod is gonna start to push over with it. So, as long as you know about this in advance, there's an easy way to fix it. You can either A, have a heavy tripod like I do, B, extend the legs all the way out and make it very wide and stable, or C, you can step on the opposite leg. So if you're moving to the right, step on the leg for the left. So as you push it, your tripod doesn't move. Now that is the one and only disadvantage I can truly say about this thing. And it's really, like I said, it's not a disadvantage, because my old tripod, like I said, it had these two, or my old slider, it had these two bars that came out the side, and those were used to stop the two bars that the camera sat on from flexing like this, instead of being like this. So when the camera got to the right, this would flex down, and when the camera got to the left, this would flex down. So the goal of those bars were to keep them even. But if I put any incline on it at all, like this, then I would start still having issues. So I would have to literally rest the slider against my midsection so it wouldn't go back. Now, the way I deal with this is a lot easier. Once again, like I said, I have a big, heavy, old tripod. I'm pretty sure my Manfrotto was made in like the 1980s. So it's heavy, it's old, it's big. It has a giant Gitzo head, a video head made in like 1992, I think it was. So I use really old gear, and all that old gear is heavy. So I almost never encountered this problem. But I did notice it when I used it on one of my newer, lighter Manfrotto tripods. So it's just something to keep a heads up on, or keep aware of, should I say. Now, let's talk about how this thing fits into my workflow and why it fits in so seamlessly. And I talked already about how this tension bar allows you to get the same shot every single time. It's really, really nice. But the one reason I prefer this over the Slider One V2 Pro is that I can make this move fast. As I've mentioned in other videos, typically I try and shoot 60 frames a second and slow it down. Now, with the Slider One V2, it moved very slow. It was like this slow, is about how slow it moves. Now, that being said, I had to take that footage and speed it up, which negated the fact that I shot at 60 frames a second to slow down anyway. But with this thing, I control that. So I figure out what I want it to be in the beginning of the house. Do I have a smaller house and I need less clips? Maybe I want them to move a little bit slower. I have a larger house, so I need the clips to be a little bit shorter or smaller. Well, then I can relieve a little tension and make this move a little bit faster. Either way, what's really nice is it moves fast enough that when you slow down that 60 frames to 24 frames a second, which I export everything at, it still has a butter smooth look to it, but it actually moves. You can tell it's moving. I don't have to speed it up to tell that it's going across the room. It's moving fast enough because I chose that speed. I dictated it. I used my manual pressure to make it happen. That is the one reason I love this more than everything else. More than my old slider, more than my other Edelkrone slider. This thing is all about me, and that's what's really cool about it. Like I said, no buttons, no batteries, no apps or controllers. It's just this device and you. And all you have to do is make it work. So I highly, highly recommend it. Let's go on to the next thing. Now, let's talk about why it's really cool for capturing footage with this thing. As I talked about before, it's super tiny, so it's easy to bring everywhere. I talked about how cool the tension rod is, so you get that same shot all the way through. I didn't really delve into that very much, but I will in a later topic talk about that. That's very important because I don't know how long your videos are. Traditionally, real estate videos are between 1 and 2 minutes long, unless you're doing that really old school traditional mashed up to classical piano music that lasts like 5 minutes. But even if you're doing all that, it doesn't matter because these people are watching, and what makes it look cohesive is the steadiness of every shot. So if you're quickly popping in and out from room to room, if all the clips are moving at the same speed, it looks so cohesive and unique. If one's moving faster than the other one, you go like fast, fast, slow, then you'll be able to notice that as a viewer. And it won't necessarily turn people off, but having them all match the same is cohesive and it's pleasing to the eye in a way that the viewer won't really be able to say aloud. They'll look at it and they'll say, I don't know why I like this video more, but I do. And I'm telling you now, what they're trying to explain to you is how cohesive that is. When you give someone 10 shots in a row and they're all paced out nice and the same, it looks beautiful. And that's the best part about using this slider. It allows you to create that footage every single time. Once again, I have the automated version. I use it on occasion, and it does the same thing. It's very nice to have gear that produces the same thing over and over and over again. This thing is only like $299, I think, $300 basically, and let's just say that was about $400 cheaper than my last slider with the motorized setup combined to it, and this thing is way, way better, tenfold. 10 times, 10 arugulas, I don't know what you want to say. Whatever 10 you have laying around you, you got cell phones, 10 cell phones more. This thing is way better than that old slider. Now, am I saying you should necessarily replace your old slider? No, if you like your slider, keep using it. But if you are going to replace it, I do recommend this thing. Now, there's one other really cool feature about this thing that most other sliders don't have that really helps us in the real estate video world. So, 90% of my videos, I will always get of every single room a wide open shot. Probably 12 mil on a full frame, or if you're shooting micro four thirds, probably like 7 or 8, literally wide open, as wide as my lens will get. Now, the problem I had with my old slider is once I reached halfway back on the slide, I could start seeing the front of the slider in my shot. It would just peek up right in the center. It would be like, you don't see anything, and then all of a sudden, and you'd see more and more of the slide, and then I'd start going forward, and you'd see less and less of the slide. So even though my slider was this long, for real estate shoots, I could only use this much of it before the slider would start showing. Now, why did I bring that up? Because of this thing's unique design. They've actually thought about this. I don't know if they made it specifically for real estate photographers, but if you put this on your tripod mounted like this and your camera facing forward, when you go fully forward, obviously you see no slider. But the way it all retracts upon itself when you come back, I can get all the way to the back, wide open, and not see the front. When I go all the way to the back, which is very difficult to do, to get it a straight all the way slide, I usually only go about this far when I slide it. So I'm from this to this. But like I said, whenever I get to this point, I can't see the front of the slider, which means that even though this thing is smaller and it technically has a shorter throw distance than my old slider, I can get longer slides with it. Why? Because I never see it in the shot. I don't have to angle it in a weird way and point my camera up to try and go up at an angle. So I used to do this a lot. I'd go up at an angle like this so I wouldn't see the slider creep into the bottom. Well, with this thing, you don't have that problem because it slides out of the way with you. It's really unique and really cool, and it's one of my favorite things about it. I noticed it the very first shoot I used this thing, which tells you something because I use my old slider a whole lot. Now that is one super cool feature I just had to mention. In review, do I think you should get one of these? My answer is most definitely. Do I think you should replace your current slider? Probably. I don't know, it depends on how much you like your slider. Do you love it? Do you use it every single shoot? Is it easy to use? Is it effective? Can you carry it around everywhere with you? If you answered to no to more than one of those questions, then maybe you should. But if you love your slider, keep rocking and rolling with it. I'm not telling you how to do your life. I'm just telling you what I think about this thing. It has become a crucial piece of my gear. I literally use it every single shoot. I've said it multiple times. I've probably said it multiple times this video. I love the fact that this has become my steady workhorse. I would recommend it to everyone. Not only would I recommend it to people, if you are just starting out in video work, if you have a camera capable of doing video, all you need is this, and you can create beautiful videos of property and start bringing in extra dollars to your bank account to the properties you're already at currently. That is what I love about this. If you look back at some of my earlier videos, it's basically just a slider. It was before I got 107 certified for the drone. It was before I even got a gimbal. All I had was a slider. As long as you know what you're doing or put in the work to learn to do what you want to do, would be a more accurate statement, then you can use a slider alone to create beautiful footage. The best part about this slider, it does everything that the more expensive motorized versions do, except you don't need any of the other stuff that goes along with them. There is no battery, there is no controller, there's no app for your phone, there's just you and this beautifully handcrafted piece of gear that time and time again will produce the beautiful smooth shots that you need. Now, if you need a super long slider, maybe you should look somewhere else. But this guy right here, I love it for those reasons. So I would recommend anyone buy it. It's at the top of my purchase price. So, things it's got going for it. 1, super small and compact. 2, means it can fit anywhere, which means you can bring it everywhere. Which leads to 3, you will use it more often because you will always have it with you. 4, it creates repeatable slide times, which is crucial for our industry in particular, in my personal opinion. Number 5, it's solid build material. Number 6, this company has incredible customer support. I don't think I've ever dealt with anything like it. The only thing close has been Adorama for me, and they actually weren't as fast. Edelkrone was way faster with them getting returns back to me. All that being said, I love this piece of gear, and I would love for any of you to try it out. Test it out. If you've used it before, let me know what you think. Comment in the sections down below. I would love to know what you think about this piece of gear, and please let me know if you go buy one and tell me what you think about it. Well there folks, we've come to the end, and it's time for everyone's favorite part. If you liked what you saw, press the like button. If you like the way I presented it, press the subscribe button, because I'll be back with more gear reviews, tutorials, and just generalized videos of the properties I shoot, explaining how I do what I do, why I do it, and where it's going in the future. I'll keep you updated on the gear coming out. I'll keep you knowledgeable about ways to do our craft in a very, I don't want to say cheap way, but an inexpensive way. You don't always need the biggest, baddest thing on the block, and that's what this channel is all about. Honest, upfront gear reviews and tutorials. So if you liked it, please come back and check it out again. Thanks.